I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
Hi, I'm Juan Carlos. Welcome to the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and our guest today is Juan Carlos, who quite literally drove his 2015 Ford Fiesta across the country on his birthday to go make his dreams come true. This conversation is just a great example of what happens when you stop waiting for the phone to ring and just start making your own noise. We get into the weeds on some fun stuff, including why he thinks acting is basically just an algorithm you have to solve, and how a simple act of clearing a clogged toilet might be the ultimate romantic green flag. We also talk about his extrusive thoughts and why he thinks the best thing you can do for yourself is just to scratch your nose and stop trying to be perfect, during auditions especially. This is a deeply honest look at the hustle, the athlete's mentality it takes to stay in the game of Broadway, and the surreal feeling of going from wearing a fan t-shirt to originating a role in that very same universe on Broadway. So head over to Patreon or Spotify to watch the video version of this episode. Find me on the socials, leave ratings, leave a review. Those are still out there, right? Yeah? Okay. Now everybody please enjoy this episode with Juan Carlos.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Red letter, yellow letter.
I do, but I do it, I bite my tongue, because this is what you
Really?
go, music is done with the tip of the tongue and the teeth. And it brings everything forward, and then you say it again, music is done with the tip of the tongue and the teeth. The tip of the tongue. Yeah.
Teeth.
There you go. You like have to work harder for it, you know?
Oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Teeth.
That's it. Music, it's like, because it helps you make it everything more forward and more. So it's, music is done with the tip of the tongue and the teeth. You have to really work for it.
Music is done with the tip of the tongue.
That's
and
good.
the top of the teeth.
That's good, man.
I really bit my tongue.
I know. I feel like you kind of sounded like an adaptation of Jack Frost or something. This is your Or the Snowmeister, is that?
All right, my guest today is a multi-hyphenate creator whose career spans television, theater, and film. You have seen him on screen in acclaimed series such as Grey's Anatomy, The Sex Lives of College Girls, and Elsbeth. He's also a writer and director, having recently completed his own short film, Oh Brother. He is currently making his Broadway debut, originating the role of young Bob Newby in the hit production Stranger Things, The First Shadow. Juan Carlos, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alan. Also, that's exactly how you're supposed to say the title of the short film, so I'm happy you picked up on
Oh, brother.
that. Yeah, that's exactly correct, man.
Well, tell me about that.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, so that's funny because that's kind of the start of my career. So I'd kind of decided when I graduated, I was like, I'm gonna pursue acting, and I'm gonna go to LA and figure it out. And I had no connections, I had no representation, but I was like, let me drive. I got my little Ford Fiesta 2015 hatchback, drove from Florida to LA, and I met the one guy I knew there, Luke Sawyer, who's now my creative partner, and we went out on a party, and he's interesting. So I went to like a liberal arts college, and this is what happens when you go to a liberal arts college. This guy was a lacrosse frat bro that dropped out of lacrosse to pursue theater.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, a little
Okay.
crazy. And so we're very different dynamics, obviously. You know, I'm kind of this I'm more of a nerd. I like video games and stuff. But we went out to party again, and I was like, there's something special here about this chemistry. And I remember the day I started driving from Florida to LA was my birthday, and also the first day of the SAG actors strike. So I was like, shoot, man, what am I going to do? And I talked to this guy, we're both non-union. We both moved out there to be actors. And I said, hey, man, let's make a short film together. And that was kind of the catalyst of my career, because the first thing I did after we finished filming, and because it was the strikes, we got like $100,000 worth of equipment for like stupid cheap. We filmed over one weekend, so it counted as one day. We had a great DP, Grant Byers, who man, he just got such a great deal with this company. And the first thing I did when we finished filming was I made each a reel. and that one reel clip got me my first manager, my first 3 TV gigs.
Wait, out of the film you created yourself?
Out of just the short film I created myself, yes, sir.
That's crazy cool.
Yeah. And again, moving to LA with no representation, that was literally the one guy I knew in LA. I did not know anybody else.
Wow, that's cool. Well, what's Oh Brother about?
So it's about these 2 stepbrothers who are complete opposites. One's this sexy stud jock, life of the party. The other's this more shy nerd who's got a crush on a girl who's coming over. You can guess who I am. Obviously, the sexy jock.
Obviously.
And they kind of go into the antics of the party, and this guy that he has this crush on this girl, and then she actually has a crush on his brother, and it just shenanigans ensue.
Hijinks.
Yes.
I love it. All right.
Yes.
So you were saying you moved to LA, but you grew up in Miami, yeah?
Yeah, Miami, Florida,
Yeah?
yes, sir. Miami.
Miami?
Yeah, that was I think the best the place to grow up. I kind of came into theater a little later in life than maybe most of my peers. Like I thought I was going to be an animator or
Really?
something. Yeah, I loved cartoons and stuff, and I was like, I want to do that, and I draw, and I made my parents buy me like this drawing tablet, and I bought this expensive animation studio, and then my sister was like really into musical theater, and she always tried to get me in, and I was like, musical theater, that's so lame. And then she's like, well, there's a Shrek the Musical, and I was like, no way, there's a Shrek the Musical, because I love Shrek at the time, and she showed it to me on Netflix. Funny enough, they had the pro shot on there, and she's like, our local children's theater is doing it, you should go audition. And I was like, yes, and I'm gonna be Shrek, and I go up there. And I bombed my audition, and I don't get in. But just from that moment, I was like, okay, I need to figure this out now. And I had become obsessed ever since.
Are you like that in general, where you're just where challenge or something that you can't do is a challenge that you then have to overcome?
I have to figure it out. I think everything's a bit of an algorithm, a bit of a game. You could figure it out. I feel like, it's crazy because acting is such a big dream, and to many, what feels like an impossible dream. But I really do think if you keep going at it and you got the right mindset, you'll be able to figure it out. Like anything in this life, it's got its own algorithm.
Yeah.
I remember my best friend in college, Mikey. He actually wrote a paper on me and how I feel when I start something, I have to figure it out and be the best. He's like taking like some psychology class, and he didn't tell me until after he wrote the paper that he did this deep dive into my psychosis.
But did you read it afterwards and were like,
I actually haven't read it. I'm a little afraid to. I feel like if I become that self-aware of myself, there's got to be a problem. I'll start thinking, what are we meant to do here in this universe? And all those stoner thoughts. And I don't need that in my life right now.
It's basically like everything that I think about all the time anyway. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are we meant to do? And like all these, I'm afraid of being unable to learn.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yes.
If you the moment you stop learning is the moment you stop being a human, I think, really. And that's like where ego comes in, and someone might become a bit arrogant once you think you've stopped learning.
Yeah.
I want to keep learning, and I'm young and naive right now, but I want to keep learning till the day I die. I look at someone like Harrison Ford, who he says the reason I got into acting is because I knew they'll need someone to play the older guys when I get older, So I love that quote.
I never knew he said that.
Yeah,
that
he said something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but that's me, man. I want to just keep figuring it out, and I know as I get older, the lessons I learned when I was 23 won't necessarily apply to the roles I'm getting when I'm 40.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that I'm very always trying to keep my mind up to that. And growing up, when I went to my college was like a predominantly white institution, and I think something that is interesting when you're particularly an actor of color, but I think almost all actors can relate to this, is you're kind of taught to be a shell of yourself and to blend in. There are all these rules in the theater, and I think those rules are kind of bullshit. It's good to learn them, but learn them so you can break them. Because I'm not for this assimilation of actors where we all sound the same and we go up there and we slate the same way at the audition. We go, hi, my name is Juan Carlos, and I'm not, when I look at a monologue and my first impulse, like an audition monologue, and my first impulse is to turn my back from the audience. I'm turning my back from the audience. I think if we all go up there and we stand on that little X and we just say our thing, then everyone's going to seem the same. So I think there are some brilliant acting professors out there and acting methods, but if they're not dealt with care and seen as the end all be all instead of here's actually just something to implement, that's where we get into some dangerous, tricky territory for younger actors in this industry.
Well, you don't want to be a copy of somebody else
Exactly.
because
exactly.
you're not being the best you.
Yes. Anytime someone at the stage door comes up to me post show and then they say, I'm an aspiring actor. What is your biggest advice? I say, it sounds cheesy, but be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But what I mean by that is figure out how to be yourself. That's the thing that people don't, you hear people say, no, you actually have to find out what that means. What are the things that make you you? What are your tics?
Mm-hmm.
And then embrace that. I'm a big fan of Uta Hagen's acting technique for that reason. I remember taking a Uta Hagen class, and I remember in college bringing my microwave from my dorm building to the acting class because they wanted us essentially to recreate, an actual scene from your life and not something interesting at all, something very mundane. So I remember I recreated this long day I had. I was an RA, a resident assistant, and I had to deal with a particularly tricky situation one night with one of my residents. And so the scene I recreated was just me coming home and microwaving a pizza I had in my fridge. So I brought my microwave. I didn't bring the mini fridge. I was like, I'll just say the pizza was left out. And yeah, those were crazy times, but that's one of the things that teach you how to be yourself the most, right?
Well, other than microwaving pizza, what makes you you? What are your quirks?
That's a great question. And it's something I'm constantly trying to figure out, but it's funny, our writer, Kate Treefry, actually, for Stranger Things, the first shout out, she caught something, and it was a bit of an embarrassing moment for me, and she decided to tell the whole cast it, which is okay, as a little bit of a lesson of like, we cast you because we see something of you in this character. You don't have to try, especially after playing characters that are beloved on TV and people know who they are. The urge to do an impression of that is actually something they wanted us to shy away from because they were confident that we saw Bob in you, we saw Joyce in you. You don't have to try too hard. So I was at a coffee shop by a rehearsal studio right before rehearsal, grabbing a cup of coffee. As I'm leaving, Kate's walking in, and I go, "Oh, hey, Kate." She goes, "Hey, Juan." And I go, "Grabbing a cup of coffee?" She goes, "Yep." And I leave, and I go, "All right, good luck." And then I stop in my tracks, and I turn around. I was like, "I don't know why I told you good luck. You don't need luck to get coffee." And she's like, "All right, Juan, I'll see you at rehearsal." and she came back in with an epiphany and wrote a new scene and was like, "Guys, this is why Juan is Bob. He doesn't have to try. He just doesn't think before he thinks, or he doesn't think before he thinks. Clearly, right? He doesn't think before he speaks, but it's a genuine earnestness, and it's not a destructive version of that. But he's just always trying to be positive, and in doing so might jump the gun a bit. So that's one of the things that makes me. I'd say is. I call them extrusive thoughts because they're not intrusive because I let them out. That's what I call them. They're my extrusive thoughts.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. And, something I'll tell the young actors too, when you're or any actor, when you're self-taping, and that's kind of a hard thing because you're setting up the camera yourself and you're feeling very conscious that your iPhone's there, am I looking good? Something that always brings me down to earth is actually, remember, people aren't perfect, so don't try to be perfect. So the first thing I'll do in a self-tape is I'll scratch my nose or my cheek. And that makes me forget about this performance I'm doing and just brings me down.
Huh.
I think almost any acting method, Uta Hagen especially, tells you to always find an activity, something to be busy with. So sometimes that's pouring yourself a cup of coffee, but sometimes it's literally just scratch of the head, sniff of the nose, something you wouldn't want to be on camera. That's the first thing you should do.
That is probably the best advice I could take away for a self-tape is just like try not to make it perfect because they don't want perfect.
They don't want perfect. And it's something I still struggle with. I mean, everyone would, but it's just finding the thing that brings you back down to earth. For me, it's just a little scratch.
Little scratch, little nose.
Yeah.
I like that so much.
I don't think I've ever heard, not to, be pretentious and take credit for this, but I don't think I ever heard someone, that was something I just figured out.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching the movie Blue Beetle. Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great movie. It wasn't, but I think it was a really solid movie. And told a beautiful story, but Zolo Marihuana in that movie is just so expressive and so not what you would expect from this young leading star here, and he allows himself to be so silly and goofy and not be perfect, and that was kind of the it moment for me. I was like, oh yeah, I can. In my real life, if I'm telling a story, I might do a funny voice because I'm nervous. I wouldn't do that in a self-tape. I should start doing that in a self-tape. Right?
Yeah. I like that so much. That's really good. Like, just be yourself. Lean into your extrusive thoughts.
Yes.
I like that.
Extrusive thoughts.
Yes,
Let's
your extrusive thoughts. So then, but going back to Miami for a second, like you said, you got into theater later in life. So what were you doing prior to that?
Dude, I don't know. Being a hooligan, I really liked the idea of animation. I was drawing all the time. I was always a creative. I would write short stories And I showed them to my mom. She's like, these are something really special. And, that's probably what any mom would say. So I can't speak too much to that being, actually any sort of meaningful good work. But I was always wanting to do something creative. So the fact that I ended up in acting and that, and even then I'm not limited to that. I think especially today, actors need to create their own work. That's the only way to do it. Yeah.
Well, look at the very first story that you told.
Yeah.
It got you literally where you are
yes,
right now.
exactly. And actually so right before we went into filming, I was on Actors Access, this website that actors can submit themselves for projects. And it was during the strike and I was just submitting for myself for anything that wouldn't be a conflict to the strike. And one of those, that's Actors Equity, the theater union. I had sent myself in for an open call for the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child tour. Again, no representation. At that point, I didn't even have the short film. I just had like a self-tape reel that I had made. And I got a call back and they said, you can choose to be either Albus or Scorpius. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, look, Scorpius is Draco Malfoy's son. Skinny, white, blonde guy. Albus, I could maybe get away with a bit more, but I'm reading it and I'm like, but I feel really drawn to Scorpius here. In this moment, like that goofier, more anxious character. So I took the swing and I read for that and I made it all the way to the final callback and I didn't get it. But that same casting directors who a year later reaches out to me and goes, hey, this is going to move pretty quickly, but we need someone to read for Bob Newby. Would you mind coming in?
This was in LA, right?
Yeah, I was living in LA, so I had to fly to New York. I was like, I remember talking, I was like, is this really worth it? And I was like, what are you talking about? Of course this is worth it. It's Stranger Things, it's Netflix. I was like, yeah, but they're not going to cast me. They're like, you don't know that. I was like, all right, let me do it. And again, just taking big swings. This character, it was a radio monologue. He has his radio setup that he has, but it's all, he's making the sound effects as he goes. So I went all for it. I mentioned the Twilight Zone at one point, so I go do 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 do. They asked me to come to New York, and I was there for a week for what was supposed to be one callback, ended up becoming 4 or 5 and a chemistry read. And I remember after that chemistry read feeling like so good, but just I don't know, not thinking that I had it. They kind of said this goes to Netflix now. We don't know. Rehearsals starts tomorrow, but we don't know when they'll get back to us. So we'll cover your hotel. I said, all right, that's very sweet. But I was like, man, I don't think I got it, or else they wouldn't be telling me that. And 12 hours before the first rehearsal, I got the call, and like American Idol, they go, unfortunately, you're not going back to LA tomorrow. That's how they said it. And then I went to bed, and then the next morning I was.
It was like 10 p.m. the night before.
I was like maybe 6 or 7 p.m. and yeah, man,
wow.
Then I went down the list of the 23 people I called and who I wasn't supposed to tell, but I told immediately. The first being my mom, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, were you a fan of Stranger Things prior to all of this?
The biggest fan. I've been watching it since season 1 when it came out, and I remember this is a story I've told a few times, but I was such a big fan of the show, season 1. It came right around the time my birthday came out, and I remember I asked, like, all I want is a Stranger Things shirt. And my family had got me a Hawkins AV Club shirt. Nice. And now I'm playing the guy who created the Hawkins AV Club. Yes, sir. So, the biggest fan. I think it's a great show. You fall in love with the kids. And I think that's what our play has captured really well, too, is, all these adults that you've seen in the show, now you get to see them when they were kids and before they figured each other out and figured themselves out.
Yeah.
So it's a fun dynamic, man. Yeah, and especially I have to pinch myself and remind myself sometimes that, I'm in the Stranger Things universe.
Yeah, you originated this role
yes.
on Broadway.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the episode. And so many of the original cast, the film cast, the TV cast has come to see the show, right?
Yes. Yeah. We had Sadie Sink came the day before our opening, when we were in previews, because she was across the street doing John Proctor. Funny enough, John Proctor's a villain. When they were workshopping that play, they were taking it to a few different colleges. I think either the first or second college they took it to is a college I ended up going to, and it was during my audition weekend that they were putting it on. And part of the audition was that you go watch the show that they're doing. So I remember seeing like the early stage of John Proctor's the villain, and that lining up with my Broadway debut, a weird full circle moment. And I got to actually meet the writer of John Proctor at the Drama League Awards and tell her that and just be like, it's lined up. And I think she was kind of like, oh, good for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam. But there's a lot of those weird full circle moments in my life. And you have to, I don't know how spiritual I am or any, I don't try to understand what this or that means. But I think at a certain point, especially if you're a big dreamer and want to succeed in what it is you're doing, I think you have to be a little delusional and take those small coincidences as this is a sign that I'm doing something right, you know?
I like that. So when you started rehearsal, though, like coming in and talk about the first rehearsal, like the energy of creating this thing that, like, at the time nobody knew about, and we
Right.
didn't know what was happening.
Yes, it was very secretive. You know, everyone had signed an NDA, and I actually had it. They took a while to get me the NDA, so I was kind of like on an NDA handshake agreement. Luckily,
So you told a bunch of people before the
yeah,
NDA.
exactly.
Yeah.
No Netflix. I promise I didn't spill any secrets. The red dot on my forehead. No. Yeah, it was insane. I remember we didn't even our director Stephen Doldry and Justin Martin are just two lovely guys who jump right into it. We didn't even get to do a table read. We go, let's do the hardest scene of the play, which is Picture Day, which is kind of the first scene where you meet all the characters, you know, at this school picture day, and it's very reminiscent of like a John Hughes movie. Like, oh, there's the jocks, here's the nerds.
Yep.
And we jumped right into that, and everyone had the script for a few weeks by that point, except for me, who had just got it the night before, and everyone else was off book. And I remember thinking, well, I can't be the one guy on book. So right before I'd enter, I just look at my script and like, okay, and then I just go and do it, just figure it out off book. And yeah, I mean, that was the energy, and that was what we that propelled us in that momentum moving forward. You know, we just kept doing. There was no breaks. It was besides of course the breaks that were required from the union, but you're constantly going. There's not a time to think too much about how this or that is playing, which I think helped, just helping us jump right into it, not think about what we're doing, just live in what we're doing.
The technical aspect of the show is so complicated, and you talked about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the same guy who did the illusions for that did illusions for Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So how long was the tech process compared to the straight rehearsal process? Because I figured tech would have to be like 2 or 3 times as long.
Yeah, we had a I think a longer tech than most shows do. I think we had a 5-week tech.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But I think the best part about it is we actually had a lot of time in the rehearsal studio. I think we maybe had a month and a half or 2 months at the rehearsal studio, which was super helpful because it helped us find our characters before the illusions. So that way, when the illusions come in, you know, the directors are focusing on that. You know, they can only focus so much on, I don't know if my character would do this and this. You know, they can't think about it. So it was nice that we got to have those character work moments. And a lot of times our co-director, Justin, would come up to one of us and just whisper in our ear, go, out of interest, what if you tried it this way instead? And then you just had to, you know, you'd have to go and do it, and then you're like, how'd it go? And he goes, honestly, I was watching the Demogorgon, I wasn't watching you. But let me catch you next time. I'm sure it's great. So we got a lot of like whispered notes in the wings, which we had to pass down to our understudy, or else they would never know because it was so unofficial. But that's the way they work. They act on impulse. And sometimes then they'll watch it in the context of the whole show and be like, that didn't work, you know, it was our impulse in that moment. But they love making mistakes, which is so important for a director to not make you feel like you need to get it right in a certain time span. It's, no, let's make mistakes. And he'll tell you, he's like, sometimes I don't know. I'm making it up as I go along. And I'm like,
well,
yeah.
I mean, part of it is once you see everything together, and then you see it with the equipment and the tech, and that's one of the characters, and then the audience. I always say the audience is the final character.
Yes.
So once you get it in front of previews, something that you're like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to work so great. And then you're like, oh, just bombs.
Yes, 100%. We had a lot of that. I mean, we have a completely, I wish we could have filmed our first preview. Like, because it is a completely different show than what we ended up with. I mean, scenes, we'd be, you know, 2 or 3 hours before we'd go on for a preview, we'd be handed a new scene. We say, let's try it. Let's tech it real quick and let's try it.
Wow.
Yeah. It was constantly changing. It was so special. I don't know how many shows get to have the writer of the show in the room with you making changes, right? But it is so special because then also the characters are honed into us as well. Whatever it was they saw of me as Bob, that's what they focused on more than in the London production is a completely different show. A completely different show. So yeah, the audience makes a big change. I mean, we were changing things up until we really weren't allowed to anymore. You know, I mean, even actually, like we you know, it's exactly the type of process I'd want to do, though. I especially when I hear the other actors who had months long audition processes. Some people had 2-year long audition processes. For me to do it the week before rehearsal starts, that I would go crazy if I was waiting for months on months just to hear about this one callback. So for me, it's been jumping right into it every day and just going, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Wait, so you got the call to come to New York, and Was that a callback or was it for a first audition? Because you did a self-tape first.
I taped first. But again, I was asked to tape after the show was cast. They actually needed a recast for Bob Newby, and I was asked to tape for it. And it was like over Christmas break, and I was back home with my family, and I did not have my self-tape set up. So I asked my best friend Mikey, who wrote the paper about me. I went over to his place, and we found like the most gray wall he had with semi-natural fluorescent lighting. And, and it was probably like the worst self-tape setup I've ever put on tape, and it ended up being my biggest audition ever. And the biggest.
Bob's kind of just that guy, though.
Yes, he's inventive. He just has to kind of create things as he goes along and make them seem as professional as he can, but it's really kind of wonky. So I think maybe they like that too. Who knows? And I remember so it was like 3 weeks after I taped, I was like, I guess I didn't get it because they told me it would move fast. And 3 weeks after my tape, I'm back in LA. I'm with my buddy Lexi. I'm helping her build her new bed that she bought, and we're talking about our New Year's resolutions. And I told her, Lexi, I don't know how, but 2025 is the year I'm going to become a full-time actor. 5 minutes later, I get the call. Hey, they want to see you in New York. Can you be there next week? Sure, let's figure it out.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
You got like some magical manifestation power. Or something.
I talk about this a lot, and my sister and I disagree on it a lot because I don't necessarily believe fully in manifestation or try to at least not understand it fully. Like I can't. But I do know that I think if you shift your mindset a bit, you start seeing doors that look closed but might be slightly cracked open. Then all of a sudden those doors become wide open when you see that. Versus if you're thinking the other way around, like, oh, this is too hard, this isn't for me, I'm not going to get this, all the self-doubt, those slightly cracked doors look completely shut and locked.
Right.
So that's kind of how I try to make sense of it. I don't know if I fully believe in the power of manifestation, but I'm not naive enough to or arrogant enough to say, yeah, it definitely doesn't work. It's not this way at all, But I think it's a little bit of both. You manifest, but you prepare. Luck is opportunity meets preparation.
Yes. Always be prepared so that when you have the opportunity or the window opens, you can slide through when you're ready.
Yes.
That's a constant theme I hear from people who have succeeded in what they want to do. And I think that is kind of the key to manifestation. It's just like you focus on what you want from an energy level, from a skills perspective, and from learning, right? Like make sure you're always learning about what you want to do so that as soon as that window opens, that door opens, you're just like, let me walk on through.
Let me walk right through it. Yeah. I don't need to I don't need to wipe my shoes on the doormat or I'm ready. Let's walk right through it. Yeah. I love that, man. And it's what you got to carry with you. You have to, I keep saying it, but you have to be delusional to make it in any industry.
This business?
In this business,
100%.
Especially. Yeah, especially when you hear the statistics of the actors who, like 1% of actors actually get paid to do it for a living.
Yeah.
But you can't look at that and go, well, it's impossible. You look at that and you go, how can I be in that 1%? And then for me personally also, how can I try to be an example or change the industry in a certain way so that 1% can become 3%, 4%, and it becomes more accessible to all. Because that's also something that's really important to me.
Even, I mean, this sounds kind of cliche, but like in that 1%, you are a minority in that 1%. Because you're a person of color.
Yeah, it's a fair, and I'm a person of color playing a role that's not meant to be a person of color. That's not lost to me. Even in that last Harry Potter callback I had, I remember it was me and 3 other guys, and they were all skinny white blonde dudes. And who am I to think that, Draco Malfoy's son should be this Hispanic guy with black hair and is a little chubby, and it was like, is that really Draco's son?
Do we ever see Draco's wife? We never do, right?
I'm not enough of a Potterhead to be able to tell you that. I don't want to.
I don't think we do.
We found her,
you never know who Draco was with.
That's always what people say about my version of Bob Newby too. It's funny. I think what's funny is I actually think people think about that more than I do myself. Like people find their justifications through it, whether it be my co-stars or people in the audience. I actually find that it's not, for this project particularly, it's not helpful for me to think about it. All I can do is be as honest portrayal of Bob as possible. And if you want to look at it and be like, okay, well, we see Bob Newby's dad. Bob Newby's mom could have been a Latina, and maybe Bob kind of grew up a little paler because he's in Hawkins, Indiana. You make whatever justifications, but that to me wasn't essential in finding the honesty behind this character. But I do really appreciate you saying, like, being in the minority of the minority. That is something I strive to be a leader in change there. I hope that doesn't sound too pretentious or self, patting myself on the back there, but it's more just like constantly trying to be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
And advocating for others who aren't as fortunate as you. But I always, I was on a little college tour for a little bit, going to different colleges and talking to young actors. And I just tell them there's no one set path in this industry. And it feels like there is, because there's a lot of talk about nepotism, these Nepo babies. But that is a valid and real thing that we should talk about, but you can't let it dictate your life. I have 3 siblings. I have a single mom. We grew up on food stamps in Miami. Where I grew up, people either worked at a grocery store and worked their way up to be a manager, or went and sold drugs, to make ends meet. So, and I was like, I want to be an actor. We're like, what? Who does this kid think he is? But you can't think about how the odds are against you.
That's part of the delusion that you're talking about. And I want to rephrase this. I don't feel like it's delusion. I feel like it's just not letting yourself get overwhelmed by what could be interpreted as insurmountable challenges.
Yeah.
Because everything is surmountable.
Everything. Yeah, I agree. I think, and again, you always have to be cognizant of there are people less fortunate than you. And I could say, I believe you could, if you want to achieve your dreams, you can make it happen. But then if you want to be an NBA player and you're 4'8", what's the dream within the dream? I'm not
Bogues.
Exactly. There we go. But
dude,
yeah.
So was a 5'6",
even then,
5'7",
and we got who's that guy who plays on the Grizzlies? I'm forgetting his name, but he's 5'8", and everyone loves watching him play because he's just the best. So there always is a way of achieving those dreams, even if it might be through a non-traditional path. But if David thought he couldn't take on Goliath,
Well, it's literally this morning I responded to a Spotify comment that somebody left about my Emma Pittman episode for this podcast. And they were like, oh, I love Emma Pittman. I want to be on musical theater, but I'm not a good enough singer. I'll never make it. No, they said, I want to be on Broadway, but I'm not a good enough singer. And I responded to this comment and I was like, listen, there are so many things you can do to get on Broadway that don't have to do with singing. And you can be in a musical and not even be a good singer.
And I'm a big believer also in that there's this kind of myth of this industry that you either have it or you don't.
No.
And there are maybe people who it comes more naturally to them, but this is a completely teachable career.
And it's case by case with your creative team and the character work. What the character is, what the story is.
Yes.
Because you may have somebody who came in and was writing Stranger Things that wrote it in a completely different way that would not have ever worked for you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's all of these stars aligning to make it happen, but that sounds like it's this rare occasion, but the stars align all the time.
Yes.
And like you said, if you're looking for
it,
then you can see it.
Yeah, then you can see it. But if you're not looking for it, it just looks like, yeah, whatever. The stars aren't even that bright in the sky tonight.
Yeah. Too much light pollution.
Too much light pollution in Times Square.
From my mental state, too much light pollution.
Yeah. So I just strive to be the change you want to see. If there's, make the movie that you want to watch in theaters that no one's producing.
That's legitimately why we are sitting here today. Is because I started this because I couldn't find anything else that I wanted to listen to.
Yeah. That's awesome. But that's exactly
I am serious.
Yes.
And this is no shade to any other Broadway podcasts out there. Because there's also a discoverability problem. I couldn't find what I also listen to now. Anyway, sorry, my colleagues, not throwing you under the bus. You're all very good. But so now that you're in New York and you're living this life like that, I want to go back and like that 15, 16-year-old kid that you're struggling. I will say struggling. It's making ends meet might be tough in Miami when you're a teenager with single mom, right? Like,
dude, it was. I started working at 15, and I went up to the owner of the children's theater I would perform at, and I'd always see him working alone post rehearsals on the sets. He'd be, he's a carpenter, and I told him, Tim, I don't know anything about carpentry, but I would love to start working with you and building these sets. Like, would you want to teach me? And he goes, Juan, I don't think it. Yes, of course I would. And that guy's like my dad now. Like I just was talking to him yesterday on the phone. And his wife Beth. They're all such lovely people, and they really shaped who I am. But that was part of it. So I was homeschooled, and we did school online. So I'd do school online in the morning until about like 2 or 3. Then I'd go and work carpentry with Tim before rehearsals, go to rehearsals, and then work after rehearsals until like pretty late at night. I won't want to talk about the child labor laws there, but it was my choice to continue to stay there, and it brought something to my acting career too, I think. In college, I did a production of Sweat by Lynn Nottage, and I played this barback Oscar, and there was something so special about building the bar that then later in the show I'm cleaning or maintaining.
Oh, that's cool.
It was mine. It was earned. And there was just no, I remember having a conversation with my mom when I was about 16. I was talking about applying for colleges, all these exciting ones I was wanting to go to. And she stops the car and she goes, Papa, you have to like stay here and go to community college. I can't afford to, and I said, don't worry, I'll figure it out. And I did, it's just this constant belief that things will work out because you'll make them work out.
Yeah.
And finding the ways to work it out. And I remember in college when my senior year, I got a few extra grants and I was able to stop working in carpentry and really hone in on my craft. I was working 3 jobs at the time. I was an Uber Eats driver, I was an RA, and I was a carpenter. So just release one of those jobs was such a huge blessing and allowed me to focus on my career a bit more. But also doing all those things outside of acting also shaped me as an actor, because the better and more worldly of a person you are, the better an actor you are, I really do believe.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the episode.
So
When I was in my early 20s, I supplemented my acting career by being a GC's personal assistant, a GC's assistant.
Oh, whoa.
And so it was just me and him. He was an independent contractor. So the two of us would just go around for 3 years off and on in North Carolina. I would just build roofs and doors, put in windows and doors and tile work and floors, and like the ability to sit down for a couple hours, sweat your ass off, build something tangible that you can touch and that people use and that they enjoy.
Right.
Like the satisfaction of that, I still get. And I still, like a couple of years ago, I renovated my basement and like went completely gutted it and went and now it's the playroom for the kids, right?
That's awesome.
And so it's like one of those things where like these life skills bring you forward, but now like the ability to look like you could use a power tool, that's important.
That's pretty cool. I remember my first, should I tell? I'll tell this story. I'll tell the pre-story to the story because I think it's kind of funny. I show up to my audition. It's me and 2 other guys who are called in for Bob, and this girl who's the casting monitor, she's taking our scripts, making sure we don't keep them with us because of the NDA. And I remember thinking, man, she's so pretty. She's really nice, and she's pretty funny, and we're kind of chatting it up before I go in. Then I go in, I do my scene. I end up just shooting can I curse on the show?
Yeah.
I remember just shooting the shit with Stephen Daldry. This big Oscar, Tony, BAFTA. But we were just talked for like 40 minutes. And I think that's what got me the job, I think. Not the scene. The scene was whatever. It's the fact that I could talk with him and just shoot the shit for 40 minutes. So I left feeling pretty good about myself. I still didn't think I was going to get it, but I was like, it was just a practice in confidence. And I remember going up to the casting monitor and saying, hey, I'm in New York for a few days. Don't know what's going on, but love to grab a drink with you. So I was hoping you'd ask. And she's my girlfriend to this day. But to bring it back to this working with your hands, the first time I went over to her place, her roommate was there. I said hi to her. I was like, can I use your restroom real quick? And it's clogged. And so I come back out. I was like, hey guys, it wasn't me, but your toilet's clogged. Do you mind if I fix it for you? And I remember her to this day, she tells that story. That was like the biggest green flag to me and my roommate. We were just like, oh yeah, we got to keep him around.
I'm gonna unclog.
Yeah. So,
oh my God.
Young men trying to woo some ladies out there, or whoever, just
learn how to use a plunger.
Learn how to use a plunger.
That's the takeaway.
That's the takeaway. That's the soundbite.
Yeah. If you want to be successful in Broadway, use a plunger.
Use a plunger.
That's it. And then you get the monitors, you get the jobs.
Yeah. There you go.
That's so funny. All right. So let us begin to wrap up. I haven't looked at my notes once. This is incredible.
That's great.
Okay. So now we're gonna play plot in 60 seconds.
Oh boy. Okay, let's do it. So I imagine it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes. I have a list of 16 musicals.
Oh no.
17. Sorry, I can't count. 17 musicals. Right. And you give me a number 1 through 17. That means you will pick from my list. I'll tell you what you picked, and you give me the plot in 60 seconds.
Wow.
So 1 through 17.
Give me 5.
Give me 5. That's Mary Poppins. Go.
60 seconds.
Okay,
remaining.
Mary Poppins is a magical woman who has a wonderful bag that is endless and a big umbrella that makes her fly. And she comes down to nanny these 2 children who meet her ragamuffin situationship, Bert. And
45 seconds remaining.
The sound, the 45 seconds got me nervous. And and they learn how to step in time, and they're all practically perfect in their own way. It's just the names of the songs. They feed some birds and learn how to fly a kite, and
30 seconds
their kind of absentee father learns to be a good father and love them a little bit more thanks to good old Mary Poppins, because it's always a jolly holiday with Mary.
And she flies away. Far under the umbrella. That was good. That was
That's
good.
tough, man.
I like that. Look, they step in time, and
yeah, I was just going through the song list in my head. I was a tech for Mary Poppins at the children's theater that I worked at, and we had this big set that was the house, and you could turn it around and to be the above the apartment building where they can step in time, and we had to like turn it manually. There's like ropes. We didn't have like a revolver or anything. And it was in a blackout, and I just was turning with the rope, and I just walk right off the stage. And I just roll off the stage, jump back on, finish the move, and run back into the wing.
Did the audience see you?
Probably.
Was it like a gasp? It was like,
there was a gasp. There was like, and then someone laughed. You know, there's always that one unserious person whose first instinct is to laugh.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a fun time. And I remember the stage manager came up to me and she's like, "You can't do that." I was like, "Yeah, no shit, Sherlock." I wasn't trying to.
Like, do you think I did that on purpose?
On purpose? Like, what is this? Yeah. So then every show after that, once I got to that point of turning it, I would actually hop on to the set and just travel with it until I was in a safe enough place to turn over.
Wow. You can't do that. Of course I can't do that.
Yeah, of course I can't do that. I have a similar story of, people always tell me that, I guess, when I mess up. First day of Broadway rehearsals, I'm feeling pretty good. I had this great, date with the casting monitor, and I'm like going to rehearsal. I'm feeling good about myself, and I slip on ice and just eat shit in front of this bodega. And the guy comes out of his bodega and goes, "Hey man, you can't do that." He's sitting there like, "Dude, I wasn't trying to. What do you mean you can't do that?"
Hey, I'm walking in. You're walking in. You can't do that.
So that's another, I guess, recurring segment of my life is me doing something stupid and someone saying you can't do that.
You should work that into the show somehow. Like,
yes,
like you tell your castmates. So if you ever like flub a line or something, it's like, hey,
you can't do that,
Bob. You can't do
Bob,
that.
you can't do that. That's great.
All right, so I think you have answered one of these three already, but I have three standard closing questions.
Let's do it.
First one simply is just what motivates you.
Man, family is a big one for me. I remember it always comes back to family for me. When I was in college, and it's tough when you're, the child of immigrants. There's kind of this perception that you stay in the house, particularly in Latino culture. I think you stay in the house, you find a good job that pays well enough to help support everyone, and you kind of do that. And I had to make the difficult choice to be the first one in my family to leave Florida, but in a kind of selfish pursuit of my dreams and aspirations. But my mom was always the one to tell me, "You go. Figure out what you need to figure out, and we'll always be here for you to come back." So it was always in the sense of to bring success back to my family, to bring, whether that be financial, getting them out of a rut. My mom, she's the only one in her family, in her immediate family, who left Cuba to come to America. And she's particularly close with her sister, who, still to this day, part of the motivation is to get to a point where we can bring her over here. And help out with my family in Cuba as much as well. So that's my biggest motivator for sure is family. And I've also always said, I also take kind of an athlete's mentality on acting a little bit. I think as actors, you're kind of trained to, hey, you're nothing, you're not the shit. You should take any job you want, whether it's not paying, whether they treat you poorly. Like, you are lucky to be doing this. But with athletes, you don't tell them that. You tell them what you do is you train, you practice, and you become the best you can be. You become the Michael Jordan. You become the Tom Brady. You become, these different goats of their own sport. And I'm nowhere near that at all. But I always aspire to be the best version of myself I could be, and take that athlete's mindset. Kobe, back to Kobe Bryant and that Mamba mentality that he always talks about. That was those speeches from athletes, or watching, Game 7 of the finals. That always inspired me just as much as listening to, Sir Michael Caine discuss how to act on the camera versus on screen, or talk about, hear Denzel talk about Fences and why it had to be directed by a black director, and all these things. That's just as inspiring as the sports stuff to me.
That's crazy cool. All right. So this is one I think you've answered already. What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
Yeah, I think to my younger self, I almost don't even want to say anything. I want to just let him figure it out, because it's working out so far. But yeah, besides the figure out how to be yourself thing, it's just always treat people with kindness and humility. You know, my mom, the first thing she said when I told her I was cast and I'm going to rehearsal tomorrow was, you say hi to everyone there. I don't care if it's the director or the janitor. You're saying hi to everyone there, and that's what I try to keep with me throughout it. And again, I'll tell that to every actor. Say hi to the PA. Say hi to the grip. Say hi to the janitor. One of my best buddies in high school was the janitor. Her name was Belkis, and she was so sweet. And she was from Cuba, and we'd talk. And she had to like leave some of her family behind to come here. And for Valentine's Day, I heard flowers and chocolates, and so that's part of it. You know, you have to treat everyone with humility and chat with everyone as if they're the CEOs.
You are Bob Newby, dude.
Thanks.
Jeez. I love that. Okay, last question. This is the hardest one. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Ragtime.
Ooh.
That's it. I remember I was so lucky to do the full production of Ragtime in high school. I played father, and I think that's very rare for a high schooler to be able to do the full production of Ragtime. And it was one of the great. It's the great American musical. That musical is what America is, you know.
Yeah.
And I just got to watch it at the Lincoln Center.
So good.
Oh gosh, Joshua Henry, especially this production, I could watch forever. I could listen to Joshua Henry's voice for the rest of my life and be happy. So Ragtime, I highly recommend everyone to check it out in any way they can, because it is the American musical.
I love that. All right. So where can we connect with you? Find you online? Say hi?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's Juan Carlos with 2 C's, because I'm not rich and famous enough yet to just buy Juan Carlos. So it's Juan Carlos on Instagram. You can find me at the Marquee Theater Tuesday through Sunday, playing Bob Newby and Treating Things to First Shadow. You'll find me around. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I'm doing a lot. I'm developing a pilot with my buddy, my writing partner, and that's going to be really exciting and be in the works real soon. So if you look for those slightly cracked open doors, you'll find me in there more likely than not.
Jam a crowbar in there and keep wedging it open.
Yes, sir. That's the way to do it.
There you go. I am on thetheaterpodcast.com, on part of the Broadway Podcast Network. You can find me on theater_podcast on Threads, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on Facebook. Leave a rating review. Tell your friends. Leave a comment. Obviously, I respond to those.
Yeah, clearly. There you go.
Thanks to Jukebox the Ghost for the intro, outro music. And Juan, thank you so much. This has been such a fun
Alan,
conversation.
this has been lovely. I really appreciate you having me, man.
Of course.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.